Hello, I'm going to start talking to you about a little boy that I decided to do for the SART presentation. A little introduction about this student. He is a 5-year-old boy who was brought to the kindergarten this year. He was previously thought to be placed in the preschool due to some other concerns that the parents had, one of them being that they needed a full-day preschool, which we did not provide. He was then taken to kindergarten. This student had not previously been exposed to any other school. He had also not been exposed to any other students. Parents worked night shift at a state hospital, and then he was cared for by grandparents at home. This student had a younger brother, and so he was the only other child that this student had ever been around. So previous to kindergarten, he had not really been exposed to a lot of other things. So to begin my SART presentation, I'm going to start talking about the teaching that we use. So the different ways that we can teach the kids with him, or that we use with him, we use a one-on-one teaching strategy. We use hands-on tools, and then we use manipulatives. We also use the reteach methods, so this is where we go into the classroom, and then we take what she does and then we reteach him in a little small classroom. SART information. So the following slides are going to talk about what we currently use for our student and the interventions that we've used. And so our goal for the student is to help him count from 5 to 10, and then to understand the difference between more and less. And so previously we had learned the numbers from 0 to 5. So the first element is the visual tactile. And so for this, the first question is does our strategy include this element? Yes, we have this element included. We currently use blocks, we currently use bears, counting cubes, and then when we are trying to talk about the difference between more and less, we also use Skittles. Like I had said earlier, my student has a really hard time with understanding numbers, and he had not been previously exposed, so even though he's in kindergarten, he's still pretty far behind his peers. So understanding the difference between more and less was really hard for him, and it took us a while to figure out a way to help him understand that. And one thing that really spoke to him was using Skittles. And so what we would do is we would put Skittles in one hand. So we might have 4 in one hand and 3 in the other hand, and then we would ask him, which hand would you like? And then he would choose his hand, and then we would ask him, why would you like that hand? And so then he would say why he would like that hand, and we'd say, was it because there was more Skittles or less Skittles? And so just trying to find ways that he understood the difference between more and less. We also use the bears whenever we're learning to count the numbers between 5 and 10, and so we might have circles on his page, and he has to match the bears to the circles. He uses the counting cubes sometimes, but he gets distracted by having to stack them and having to connect them, and so we found that the bears really work for him. The only difference is he really likes to have the same color of bears, and so again, you just kind of have to watch and make sure that he doesn't get distracted by those little things. The second element to this is the sensory consideration, and so this was part that I feel like that because he's such a hands-on student, we use these tools, and this part of the element is considered. We don't have a lot of movement involved for him because this is only a 20-minute time that we spend with him, and so we don't have any type of sensory chair or anything for him. We just use a regular chair. So this is somewhat considered when we talk about the sensory aspect, but for the hands-on, for him to be able to use his hands and the manipulatives, we do have consideration for the sensory aspect. For positive reinforcement, this is something that we have, a strategy that we have considered and that we use with him daily. This is not actually the chart we use, but it is one that was very similar. I didn't have a chart available to use because we send them home with him every day, and so I just kept forgetting to take a picture of it before I sent it home. But we have a chart that we use with him. It took us a while to understand something that would be beneficial for him, and that was something that he could understand. And so because he has behaviors throughout the day, such as snotting, he will headbutt, he will scream, he will kick, he started kissing other students, and so when we noticed those, the positive reinforcement for him was to get a smiley face. And it doesn't matter what the color is of the smiley face. It can be an ink pen, it can be in pencil, anything, but he really strives on getting that reinforcement of a smiley face. And so we do give him a smiley face every time he has completed a task that he is supposed to complete, and we have broke it down, and he gets as of right now, he has 16 different smiley faces that he's able to get within his day. And so during our math time, he's able to get 2 smiley faces if he's doing what he is supposed to do, which is to stay on task and to not display inappropriate behaviors. So individualized and motivating, this is something that our elements, or that our strategy has. It is definitely individualized for this student. We have no other students that, number one, have this behavior chart, or number two, are taken to do this kind of math. Typically at this time of the year, all of our other students are adding and subtracting in kindergarten. So this is definitely an element that we have in our strategy. I feel like it's very motivating for the student. He gets a lot of one-on-one time with a teacher, which he really loves, and he also gets the positive reinforcement of the smiley face, which is a really big deal for him. He gets to have treats at the end of the day if he has a certain amount of smiley faces, and that's something for him that he really works hard for. So next we're going to talk about whether or not this teaches what to do for the student. And of course our goal is that it always accomplishes, we always want to accomplish what our goal is, and that it does teach what to do. So I feel like on this that our element is in this, and that we are teaching our students what we want, which is to learn to count from 5 to 10. Is it predictable and consistent? Of course. You know, it's as consistent as we can be. We have the same classroom that we use. We have the same tools that we use. But if we have, you know, the teacher or the para that's gone, obviously we can't be 100% consistent. So it's not always going to be consistent, because you're going to have those factors in there. And then is it predictable? You know, it's somewhat predictable just because, like I said, we are trying to use as much of the same consistency as we can throughout. And then, you know, we're in a one-on-one setting with the student, and so we can almost guarantee that we have a predictable outcome with him, which is that he's going to be able to work well with the para, and he's going to do what he's asked. And then finally, is there reliable implementation? And so for this, you know, this strategy somewhat has this element in it. And the reason I say that is because, again, it's depending on the day and the staff member who's here with the student. Again, you know, we try to keep everything the same for the student, but there might be days where we have to have somebody step in who is a little bit different than what we do, and then what we had on the previous day. As for documentation, we use the ESGI, which is the picture that I showed on here, and it's just a data collection tool that we use for kindergarten and first grade, and so that's what we use with him on our collection of data. So that is what I have for my SART for this